I couldn't go home that night. Another visit from the president, and my parents would have really freaked. Fortunately, based on earlier orders from J. Timothy, Marine One had returned to the Burp It Up football field. It had sleeping facilities inside, so that's where I spent the night. The last thing I remember before falling asleep was hearing Gail on the phone, calling Mr. Dirksen, Josh, and Andy to make arrangements for the next day. When I woke in the morning, the sun was coming up. It was early, but Gail was already having coffee in the helicopter's galley. Want some? She asked. No thanks. I yawned. I don't drink it. Yes, you do. Oh, yeah, I forgot. She poured me a cup. What's the plan? I asked after taking a sip. The stuff wasn't bad. With Mr. Dirksen's help, we were able to persuade Ms. Rogers to give you, the president, the history midterm first thing this morning, Gail said. In fact, he's probably already taking it. We're lucky Ms. Rogers is married to Mr. Dirksen. How'd you get Ms. Rogers to do it? I asked. We told her Jake, would have to leave school early today to meet with the Commission on Teenage Attitudes. What about Josh and Andy's helicopter ride? I asked. They should be on their way here right now, Gail replied. I took another sip of coffee. Sounds like you've taken care of everything, I said. Just about. Gail managed a crooked smile. Everything except you, right? Oh, I'll be okay, Gail said. There are lots of opportunities for former presidential press secretaries. Books, newspaper columns, lobbying, but it won't be the same, I said, pretty much reading her mind. Gail shrugged. It's been a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Of course I'll be sorry to see President Frimp lose. Believe it or not, he really is a good man. He always tried his best. That made me feel bad. Then I'm sorry I messed it up for him last night. It didn't matter, Gail said. He was behind in the polls anyway. The helicopter door opened and a Secret Service agent stuck his head in. The kids are here, Mr. President. I glanced at Gail, who nodded, and then said, send them in. Andy and Josh climbed into Marine One and looked around with wide eyes. Cool. Andy gasped. Josh rubbed his hand over the plush seats. Deluxe accommodations. A pilot wearing an olive green flying suit and a helmet climbed down from the cockpit. You boys ready? Totally. Andy said. Follow me. The pilot climbed back into the cockpit. Andy and Josh went up. I grabbed a handle and started to follow them. Mr. President. Gail tapped me on the shoulder and shook her head. You can't go. Why not? I asked. Better to be safe than sorry, she replied with a wink. We watched Marine One lift off with a roar in a cloud of leaves and dust. Some kids get to have all the fun, I grumbled, only half serious. But not many get to be the president, Gail reminded me. Near us, a door to the school opened and Mr. Dirksen looked out and waved. The president's finished with the test. It's time to switch back. Gail and I followed him back to the lab. President Frimp, in my body, was waiting inside. So how'd you do? I asked. On the test. Piece of cake. He smiled confidently. You serve, I asked. Hey, I'm the President of the United States, right? If I don't know our history, we're all in a lot of trouble. Come on, Mr. Dirksen said. We'd better do this before anyone comes in. He directed us to the dits and we sat in the reclining chairs. It will just take a moment, Mr. Dirksen said, adjusting a few knobs and tapping the keys on the computer console. So, how'd it go at home last night? I asked. Fine, President Frimp, in my body, replied. I did everything I was supposed to do and watched Monday Night Football with your dad. It was a very pleasant evening. Great. I was glad he hadn't watched the debate. By the way, Jake, the president said from his seat. I heard about the debate on the news this morning. Oh, I braced my elf. FM not mad at you for last night, Frimp said. In fact, FM proud of you for taking a stand and speaking out about how you really feel. It's something you don't see politicians do much anymore. Even though it means you'll probably lose by a landslide. I asked. I serve the people of this country, Jake, the president replied. A majority of the voters heard what you said last night. Now it's up to them. Here goes. Mr. Dirksen said. I shut my eyes and braced myself. Womp. Everything went black. The morning after the election, T can't believe it. Jessica shouted as I came into the kitchen for breakfast. Mom and Dad had already left for work. I was back in my old body. What? My sister held up the local newspaper. A big headline read, FRIMP ekes out victory. Voters say re-election hinged on last-minute appeal. President visits neighborhood McDonald 9s just hours before debate. I felt my jaw drop. No way. Can you believe it? Jessica asked. I guess I have to, I stammered. I wouldn't have voted for that creep. Jessica shook her head. Not after what he did to me the other night. You shouldn't take it personally, I said. How can I not take it personally? Jessica asked. Mom and Dad say I have to do all your chores from now on. I can't watch my soap opera anymore. Of course, you can still watch all the sports you want. Boy, if I ever get to see him again, I'll Brian. The phone rang. Jessica angrily yanked it off the hook and barked, hello. Her eyes widened and her mouth fell open. Huh, oh, hi. What? He's on the line. Jake. He's right here. Jessica held the phone toward me. Who is it? Gail Robbins. Jessica's eyes were wide. She says President Frimp wants to speak to you. I took the phone. Hi, Gail. Hi, Jake, Gail said. Hold on a second. I heard a click and then the president's voice. Jake. Hi, Mr. President. Gail and I both want to thank you, Jake, President Frimp said. If it wasn't for you, this couldn't have happened. Hey, I just did what any kid would have done, I said. Well, you don't know what this means to us and to the country, the president said. We're going to change some things in the next 4 years. I think you'll be pleased when you hear about them. And that reminds me, you know the Commission on Teenage Attitudes. Yeah, how would you and your friends really like to be on it? Sounds cool. Consider it done, the president said. And if there's anything else I can do, just ask. Well, there is one thing, I said. I was wondering what happened to Jay. Timothy. Oh, well, frankly, Jake, I don't see him fitting into the future here, President Frimp said. What about Gail? I asked. That's a different story, said the president. As long as I'm around, she'll be here, too. Great. So you take care of yourself, the president said. And if you need anything, you can always reach me through Gail. Stay cool, Mr. President. You too, Jake. He hung up. As I put the receiver back in the hook, I noticed that my sister was staring at me. Did you just tell the President of the United States to stay cool? Sure, why not? She just shook her head and rolled her eyes. Only you, Jake. Only you. Things pretty much went back to normal after that. At the end of the week, Ms. Rogers gave us back our midterms. I thought you all did very well, she said as she went up and down the aisles handing back the tests. Some of you would have done even better, but your spelling left a lot to be desired. As she said that, she stopped at my desk and handed back my test. On the top was a big red A. Every answer was right, Jake, she said. But I couldn't give you an A because of your spelling. How in the world could you misspell Washington? But it's not my fault. I gasped without thinking. Ms. Rogers frowned. Then whose fault is it? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Josh and Andy with their hands over their mouths, smirking. All I could do was sigh. You won't believe me, Ms. Rogers, but this thing goes all the way up to the top.